through the sunnah and through tasawwuf, this reawakens in the nafs the numbed tension within the heart. This reawakens the numbed tension within the heart by putting these restrictions upon the nafs. Once the Sufi faces this tension, since when it's reawakened by these restrictions which the nafs does not like, once this tension is faced, the heart will begin to awaken from its numbness. So the key to waking up the heart from the paralysis, from the numbness, is placing restrictions on the nafs, which it doesn't like. As a consequence, this tension within it will reawaken. And the heart will similarly reawaken. Sheikh Ruzbahan expresses this point in his Quran commentary on the ayah. It might be, it's in Surah An-Nisa 19, I think. It might be that you dislike something in which God has appointed abundant good. It might be that you dislike something in which God has appointed abundant good. That's the ayah. And Ruzbahan says, every command from God, glory be to Him, every command comes in spite of the opposition of selves and as a trial and a test, since the self dislikes servanthood. So when you have assiduously, diligently imposed on the self, when you have diligently imposed upon the nafs acts of spiritual striving and austerities, riyadat, and when you've stood firm in servanthood to Allah, the first things that rise over your hearts are the lights of paradises of nearness and witnessing, of qurubat wa mushahadat. Thus, by conforming one's nafs to the limits of Shariah, by conforming one's nafs to the sunnah and to the practices of tasawwuf, its repressed tension between it and the heart surfaces and the heart reawakens. The way in which the religious actions, behavioral norms, and practices of the Shariah, the Sunnah, and Tasawwuf teach the heart to surrender. Because remember, there are two problems. The heart has to reawaken, and it has to learn how to voluntarily surrender. Now I'm talking about how the heart learns how to voluntarily surrender. The way in which religious actions, the Shariah, the Sunnah, and Tasawwuf, the way they teach the heart to surrender is that as a result of performing these actions, from time to time, the heart of the Muslim will simply involuntarily surrender as a byproduct of these actions, by the mediation of these actions. And we can also say by the jadhabat of Allah, but that's another story. In any case, at certain times, the heart of the Muslim, when he or she is performing these actions of the Shariah, the Sunnah, and Tasawwuf, at certain times the heart involuntarily surrenders as a byproduct of these actions through their mediation. At this time, when the heart involuntarily surrenders, especially if the Muslim is attempting to remember Allah Ta'ala, or if the Muslim at this time is performing the Sufi practice of muraqabah, of self-observation, he or she may catch the heart in the act of surrendering, and thereby the Sufi or the Muslim can become aware of how the heart can surrender consciously and voluntarily. Once the Muslim has awakened his or her heart and learned how to surrender voluntarily, he or she journeys inwardly from theophany to theophany, from tajalli to tajalli, embracing the tajalli and surrendering the heart to Allah Ta'ala. For this Muslim, it does not matter whether the theophany is one of Allah's benevolence, lutf, or wrath, qahr. Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, who possessed such an awakened heart, freed of the paralysis, stated, Man aashiq lutfu qahrash bijad, ay ajab, man aashiq in har dozed. I am truly in love with both his benevolence and wrath. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm in love with both of these opposites. I would like to conclude with the words of the Kubrawi Sheikh Najmuddin Razi, who expressed the spiritual transformation resulting from a life lived in accordance with the Shariah in the following manner. He stated, the possessor of true happiness nourishes the seed of the spirit in accordance with the law of the Shariat, until all of his senses attain perfection. He will then perceive through his outer and inner senses all the 360,000 realms that constitute the material and spiritual worlds, that constitute the mulk and the malakut. He'll perceive all of these realms with his outer and his inner senses. He sees every atom in each of these worlds to be a manifestation of one of the divine attributes. He sees every atom in these worlds to be a manifestation of one of the divine attributes, a tajalli of one of these divine attributes. And each of these atoms contains within it one of God's signs. He removes the veil from the face of these manifestations, and the beauty of God's signs is displayed to him. And then Razi quoted the poet Abu al-Atahiyya, who stated, in everything is a sign, in everything is an ayah of his, pointing to the fact that he is one. In everything is an ayah of his, pointing to the fact that he is one. وَفِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَهُ آيَةٌ يَدُلُّ بِأَنَّهُ وَاحِدٌ وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ تَسْلِيمًا.